Welcome to The Interest. I'm Sarah Wolak. Today, tech whiz Shane Kidwell has the algorithm to make your business grow in tech talk, and Steve Richmond invites you to take a stroll on the road to riches. But before we get to Shane and Steve, Dave Zitting, the former president and CEO of Primary Residential Mortgage Incorporated, has cracked the code to provide an affordable mortgage, minimize company overhead, and earn a profit, all while keeping everything virtual. Zitting's new company, Direct Wholesale Rates, soft-launched into the mortgage marketplace just under a year ago, with Zitting taking the helm as executive vice president of mortgage lending. The company is built on the premise of trimming the retail margin and serving the buyer a wholesale rate. I got the chance to sit down with Zitting to hear about what he calls his passion project. Let's hear what he had to say.
So we provide United Wholesale Mortgage's wholesale rate at a zero strike price.
In a nutshell, that's exactly what Direct Wholesale Rate is doing for its customers, trimming the fat or the retail margin and serving up a clean rate.
We're a federal charter bank, but we do everything with UWM as a third-party originator, and UWM is acting as the lender.
Zitting says not many in the industry do this because it trims profits. That's why Zitting has minimal and all virtual employees to lower any overhead costs to save cash.
We don't get any money from the lender at all. So that means the borrower is going to pay anything that we get. We do need to collect a fee from the consumer, so we charge that in an origination fee.
Zitting clarifies that usually the money is made in the interest rate.
What usually happens in a broker-lender relationship like that is the broker or the retail shop will say, okay, I want to get our compensation from the lender, and I'm going to put that in the interest rate.
To learn more about Direct Wholesale Rates, head on over to nationalmortgageprofessional.com. For The Interest, I'm Sarah Wolak.
We all dream of owning a home, but for too long, if you didn't fit the mold, you were stuck. Stuck because the system worked for everyone except you. We've changed that. Angel AI uses advanced AI technology to give a 100% trusted solution and fast answers for worry-free financing, allowing you to achieve fair and equal access to lending. Angel AI. AI you can bank on.
Thanks for tuning in to our Master the Market segment. So last week was one to forget about, right? Let's go back to Wednesday for a second. We had a hot inflation number. We had terrible auction. And then we had the Fed minutes basically talk about inflation, which wasn't spoken about 2 weeks ago. And then they said, you know what? We're not going to slow down the balance sheet reduction with the mortgage-backed securities. We're just going to stick to Treasury. So it was a bad day for the mortgage industry. But it's the new week. And this week, we have retail sales and some corporate earnings. On the retail sales, what we're watching at Mortgage Market Guide is real retail sales, meaning retail sales adjusted for inflation. And what we've seen over the last couple of months is that number has turned negative. And there's never been a time in history when that number turns negative that we don't enter a recession. So we have all this inflation bubbling higher, labor market's still strong, but we're starting to see some weak signals in the economy. Listen, have yourself a great week, and also watch 4.50 on a 10-year note. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Okay, Vince, I want to talk about the NAR settlement. Basically, it's a $500 million settlement. I mean, this is isn't that what NAR is supposed to exist for? To kind of to fight for these things and not have such a dramatic change, in the structure of housing.
I think that NAR was facing an unwinnable situation. And unfortunately, it shouldn't have been unwinnable. This whole thing about, splitting the commission between the seller and the buyer agent, that should easily have been theirs to win, but they lost in Missouri. And as soon as they lost in Missouri, with, again, I think it was about more than $500 million decision in that case, all of a sudden, everybody started coming out with class action suits against them. If I was them, I'd be looking at this going and saying, we cannot afford to continue fighting all of these cases individually across. We've got to find some way. So they've come out with a settlement that's going to go into effect ostensibly, I think, was it June 1st, as long as the judge approves it, which will wipe out all of those class action suits. This will be a national, an omnibus settlement, which is going to make it so that now as I say, you can negotiate with your buyer and seller agents. All the news that came out as soon as it happened was like, oh, suddenly you'll be able to negotiate. We're like, I think you're able to negotiate all along, right? This is ridiculous. People just don't do it.
Yeah.
Except now,
you can.
And they said, is this going to bring the price of housing down? Do you think it's going to bring the price of housing down?
I mean, I know you don't, because we've had a little talk about this, right. but I
agree with me or you'll lose.
Yeah, listen, I think potentially it's going to disrupt, and whenever there's a disruption, there is going to be, I believe, actually some imbalance in the marketplace over the long haul. I think you might be right. It could potentially, maybe make a more mature marketplace, but who's going to benefit off of that?
I think this is going to be a terrible situation for the industry as a whole and for consumers as a whole. Listen, if I'm a seller, right, again, I was reading all these news stuff. Oh, it's going to bring the house price down. It's not going to bring the house price down. The seller won't have to pay as much in commission to the real estate agent. Therefore, they'll bring the house price down. None of my friends would do that. I don't know about your friends. Nobody I know does that. First question they ask when they're looking at putting their house on the market and talking to a real estate agent isn't what's your commission rate. It's how much can you get me for this house?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you tell somebody they're going to get them $300,000 for a house, $400,000 for a house, and then you start negotiating over commission, you're still not going to change that $400,000 for the house.
Doesn't make a difference. But what am I walking away with?
It's not going to change anything,
That's
right?
all they care about.
Now it's going to be so much harder to find a buyer because the buyer who never had to pay for a real estate agent before is going to have to pay for a real estate agent. That could be $10,000, $15,000 to pay the buyer's commission. Where are they going to come up with that? They can barely come up with a down payment for a lot of this stuff in the first place. It's going to make it terrible. Or what they're going to do is they're going to forego using a buyer's agent completely. Now they're on their own, and especially first-time home buyers don't really know how to navigate this. I think you've mentioned that you think that this may be a big opportunity for the Zillows and the Redfins of the world to come in and really sort of be that interface for the home buyer.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially. Yeah, I mean, I think real estate tech is going to have to come into play if this is our scenario. But the worst thing I heard was somebody actually saying, this is going to be great because this is going to deregulate them like when we deregulated the airlines. And I thought, does anybody think you're actually paying less today and getting better service when you try to book an airplane than you did 15 years ago? I certainly am not. This is a terrible scenario, I think, for consumers. I think it's going to raise the cost of housing. People are still going to ask for as much as they could, and then they're going to ask for more. It's not going to make it easier. It's going to make it harder for first-time home buyers that don't have the wherewithal to come in. And housing, like everything else, is going to be there for the rich. And it's going to be so much less for people of moderate means.
I thought we were supposed to be arguing here because I kind of agree with you. So, does that mean you win?
That means I win this one.
What?
But you know what? I'll take you out as my sidekick. We both win.
All right. There we go.
For more on these and all of today's top stories, go to nationalmortgageprofessional.com.